Hello, welcome back to my studio and to 2025. In this video, we're going to get right into painting, this time in gouache, but taking a bit more of a contemporary approach, sort of a modern look, changing up some of the colors and getting something bold and a little different on the traditional landscape gouache painting. Let's have a look. Okay, this is the beautiful scene that I'm going to be adapting for this painting. Now I've got a few extra blues in this painting, cerulean blue and sky blue being most important. Maybe a little phthalo blue comes into it as well. Working on my favorite 300 GSM 140 pound cold press paper, watercolor paper, and it's just great for gouache if you're painting in this sort of style. Quick drawing to compose the painting, and then I'm going to get stuck in with some long flat and short flat synthetic brushes. Shadow pattern, very important. As you can see from the reference, very dramatic value contrasts in this scene, so it pretty much leaves a lot for you to interpret and adapt. So getting out the, I think this is a 1-inch brush with some purple and just starting the first block in. This is very much like a watercolor start. When you start with gouache like this, it's very little white paint, if any at all, and you get a good transparent layer. But following the opaque painting process, so starting with the darks, and then we'll finish off with the lights. Watercolor, the opposite way. A lot of useful vertical shapes to join up and link up the various organic shapes. Strong darks are going to play a big role in this because we've got the lights, and of course it's the strong darks that are going to make those lights really stand out. Now the palette I'm using is a Stay Wet palette, and I've linked to that in the description. Quite a useful palette. Keeps the gouache soft and moist for a good couple of weeks, depending on where you live and weather conditions, but I always give the paints a little spritz with a water atomizer before I close the lid, and that just keeps things from getting too dry. Foreground shadow, also very important. Touch of blue and alizarin in there. And just working quickly, just go for it. I think especially with these contemporary approaches, I like to work quickly because I don't get stuck or caught up with details. This isn't a painting about details at all. So you can see the darks on the left-hand side there are still drying, and so I'm working on the road. A little cooler at the back of the road and warming up as we get to the foreground. And as you paint different parts of the painting, the other areas dry down a bit, so you can go over them and not get your paints reactivated too much. Gouache, your colors must be absolutely squeaky clean. No mixing and muddying up your color, because it happens very, very quickly, and yeah, not pretty when your gouache is fighting you like that. So try to make sure your color notes are spotless. A light blue glimpse of the sky there, also some warmth in that sky. Remember, this might look light now, but gouache dries a little darker as well, so you need to compensate a little bit, perhaps one stop on the value scale, just to keep things as you envisage them. Once they dry, you don't want to look at it and think, why is my painting so dull? Bit of scumbling as well, that's a nice effect for the lights over grassy areas. So you can see these brush strokes I'm using, trying to keep things quite deliberate and strong, large strokes, a bit of overlap here or there, but quite strong and decisive brush strokes, which adds to or lends to that graphic nature. I've put a bit of ultramarine now, but I also had a bit of phthalo blue in the blues, and you'll see that's a bit of phthalo going in there now. So a really nice color for deep, colorful shadows that are cool. And when you get the warm colors in, they really do pop. Put a touch of white paint into phthalo blue, and it develops this sort of very sweet, modern looking light blue. For this style of painting, it's going to be the perfect color. As you can see, they're suggesting a garden wall with a strip of light blue paint there on the left hand side, and it makes such an attractive counterpoint to the orange in the road and the yellows in the background sky. Okay, lemon yellow and a touch of white, so this is brightening things up considerably. We're going to have a sort of halo light effect around the trees, because this light is, of course, contre jour, coming from behind the subjects, kind of blowing them out and creating a more graphic silhouette almost. But of course you don't want to paint a pure silhouette, because that would be really not very exciting. So we've got to bring in colors into those shadows, and then the lights must really be pounding away in the background to show everything off to best effect. The light yellow against the purple also, of course, looks great because of that complementary color relationship. Cleaning up some of the lights in the background. And as you can see, lots of spots and dashes and bold strokes, which the short flat or long flat brush also helps to accentuate. So we got light bouncing around everywhere, also in this water puddle in the foreground, which is a great way to repeat the lights amongst the shadows. Just creating basically a kind of a gray to bring a little bit of color into the foreground shadow, but no, not entirely what I'm looking for. Let's put a bit more alizarin in there and a touch of blue, and we get a bit more of a violet color, which I think works better. A little warmer further away and getting cooler towards the trees. These dusky pink colors also complements against the yellows. I will re-establish some of the darks in the sort of center mass of the trees just to add that extra impact. Look how these blues look so good. I really do like them. I think they simply add that modern feel to the painting, as opposed to perhaps a more traditional mix of ultramarine and yellow. Like this now is a bit more of a typical green, but good for the dark masses inside the trees. touch of cerulean blue in there to cool things down. Right, so let's get a bit of strength inside this shape as well. It's got to get some strong dark and then radiating out with the softer blues and violet colors. It's not that simple to plan out a painting like this. You basically choose a slightly different color palette, as I did, and let that have a knock-on effect. And once the painting gets going, you'll find you can easily adapt and keep that momentum going as well. Don't get caught up with too many little details. Keep using the larger brush. Softening these edges a little. Breaking up shapes that are perhaps too flat and are a little dull, just drop in a few smaller shapes and break those up, giving us sort of a light blue halo effect here, which I think also works nicely against the bright yellows behind. Already makes those bright yellows look even more eye-catching. You notice I will break up large flat shapes with touches of color like this, spots of light, just throw in a bit of a light effect there, one or two here as well, and it adds a lot more energy. An important part of every painting is how you interest the viewer's eye, and you don't want a painting to get bogged down in too many mundane shapes. Break things up a little. You can overdo it, but I'd rather overdo it and learn from that than have a painting that might be just a little dull and I'm not quite figuring out why. Right, a few of these dark vertical shapes do help to tie things together a bit. A couple of further light shapes just on the light side of the tree trunks will also help to bring in another spot of color. A little more information on the road. Let's clean that color note up back there a bit. And that's a bit better. Now the road has completely dried from the previous layers and I can go over it and add a few more touches of interest like these light spots. Bit of warm yellow as well. We need to keep the warmth going in the lights. Suggestions of leaves and bits and pieces of trees just hanging out in the lights there, and now a few accent darks. I think we need to add a figure as well, so let's get a little figure there just to add a bit of scale and interest in the focal area. Shadow to tie it down. A few little final details, just tidying up. And then I think we're pretty much there. So I've enjoyed this little painting. It went fairly quickly. This is about a 30-minute painting. And it's one that I think gives you a lot of pleasure as well. So try something a little different, just push things a bit and see what happens. And it's surprising how a few changes in your regular process can add a little bit of extra interest, or just perhaps send you down a different direction, which makes a nice change from what you may usually do. Let's sign that off, get the tape off, and have a final look at the painting. Let me know in the comments whether this is a sort of style that you'd like to try out. And remember, if you want to learn a bit more about gouache painting, find more information in the description. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little painting and it's inspired you to try something a bit different with your next gouache painting. I certainly enjoyed painting it, and it's amazing what a change just a few colors can make. Just those different blues making the whole thing change and transform into something a bit more graphic, perhaps bolder and colorful. Now, if you want more on gouache and want to get into gouache painting in more detail, check out my Gouache Painting for Beginners course. There's a link in the description and you want to see what's there. And then why not try a little free course as well? I've got one for you up here that's going to help you with whatever medium you paint in. All right, let's make this the most creative year and the year of seeing like an artist. I'll see you in the next video as well. Just make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss out. All right, until next time, happy painting and cheers for now.